And they look at their dad and their mom and it's like, this person's calling for you. And dad says, tell him I'm sleeping, tell him I'm busy. Oh, he's busy right now. The child has just learned how to lie. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. Dear viewers of the show, think about it. We always say this in the beginning of every single show, and we say it so that we might get some form of feedback coming through. If you do like the show, and if you do enjoy the content that we present, please make sure to hit the subscribe button below. And if you have any topics, anything in your mind, issues that you're facing today, issues that you think are embedded within the system today, something that you think people should talk more about, or something that should be given more attention, please leave us a comment. We'll do our research and we'll try to bring it to you and to all our viewers. Today's show is hopefully interesting for everyone, because it's definitely interesting for me and it's an eye-opener as well. So for all my young viewers, for my teenage viewers, and for my adult viewers, I hope that today's show gives you something to definitely think about, but at the same time, it gives us something to act about as well. We start off with a story, as we always do. This story is of a man by the name of Bahadur. So there's a gentleman, I don't know if I should call him a gentleman, but there's a person, his name is Bahadur. Now, Bahadur is a person who lives in modern day Canada today, 21st century, 2021, which is almost over and we're about to hit 2022. So, our man Bahadur, he lives in a property, rental. He has always rented his entire life. He does not plan on buying a house, ever. And it's all right, he doesn't have to buy a house. Nobody has to buy a house. Buying a house shouldn't be something that should be your sole goal or aim in life. There could be a variety of other aims and goals in life, so long as the market makes things accessible for you. But this is not the case with Bahadur. Our man Bahadur is a person who moves into a rental unit and does not move out, even after the landlord wants him to move out. So there's a story where a landlord provides him a notice, an N12 form. The N12 form is something that all people who own a property and they put it up for rent, they take this form from the Landlord and Tenant Bureau, the LTB, and they provide it to the tenant, the person who's leasing the property, as a 60-day notice to vacate. That means to empty the property so that they could, whether they've sold it and the new buyer, the new owner wants to move in, or whether they want to do construction, so that's an N13 form, and there are a bunch of other things. So, Bahadur is given a form by the landlord, and the form says that the house has been sold. Now, before that form is given, Bahadur's landlord tells Bahadur that I want to sell and list this house. And so people will come while you're living, and I'm going to give you a 24-hour notice, and by law, you have to allow and accommodate these people to view the house. Bahadur says, welcome, come on in. And so that's what happens. People come, they look at the house, a person likes the house, they make an offer, the landlord accepts, the house is sold. Now, when the house is sold, Bahadur's landlord provides him the N12 form and says that you have 60 days to vacate because the new owner wishes to live in this house. Now, Bahadur says, no, I can't go. It's COVID. I don't know where else to live. I don't know what else to do. I don't have the finances to find a new house, a new form, and this is my bank account, and I can't go. So all of a sudden, Bahadur's attitude changed from being open to house viewings and saying that I'm here to help, to saying, no, I'm not going to move out. Now, legally, you would think that Bahadur would have to move out. Unfortunately, when this case and situation was taken to the LTB, the Landlord and Tenant Bureau, Bahadur stated his story that it's COVID. There's a pandemic going on. I don't know where else to go. I don't have money. And as we know in the market right now, the rent has increased as well. Where am I going to go? What am I going to do? And so the judge asked the landlord and Bahadur to come back after 60 days for another hearing. In these 60 days, Bahadur did not pay rent. So he lived in that property for free. When they came back, another story came up. Another judge came. Situation changed a little bit. They got another 30 days. Bahadur didn't pay rent. Now, during this entire time, Bahadur's friends and people, obviously you're a social animal. Humans are a social animal and a social being. So his friends would meet and they would talk to Bahadur. So one of Bahadur's friends said that, you know, you've made your landlord helpless. And the only people that cause others to become helpless are gangsters. You're a gangster. And so Bahadur looked at his friend and said that everyone's a gangster. I'm just open about it. And so Bahadur's friend looked at him and said, what do you mean by that? And so Bahadur gave his friend a life lesson. And he said that this entire country that we live in, this world that we live in, everything that systematically breaks you and makes you feel helpless is a gangster system. You come to Canada on the basis of being a skilled worker. You were given God knows how many points and told that you are amazing and you had your degree equivalencies and they went through just fine and everything happened. And then you land in Canada as someone who is skilled, as someone who's brought their skill with them, whether they be a cardiologist who's a doctor, or whether it be a doctor in the field of education and they have a PhD in chemistry, science, English language, linguistics, or whatever it is, whether it be in construction, an architect, whatever their line be. They drop down onto the shores and they come to Canada and all of a sudden they cannot work in their own domain because they don't have the right qualifications for Canada. They don't have the right skills for Canada. They don't have Canadian experience, as though people bleed green over here and they bled red somewhere else. So Bahadur tells them that it's the system. And because of this system, you have to run with the system. What's the takeaway from this? So before I give you the takeaway, let's go back to how this thinking developed within our friend, or I don't know if I should call him a friend, but our main character, Bahadur. When Bahadur came to Canada, he lived in a basement for a year, rented it out. When the year came to an end, the landlord asked Bahadur to move out because the landlord wanted to use that basement for his own family. So Bahadur did want to move out. He wasn't aware of all the rules and regulations and different things behind it, but he actually did not have the finances to move out. So he told his landlord that I don't know where else to go, what to do. Where do I go? I don't have money to go and rent and live in another place. And so the landlord said, that's not my problem. I have to go. I've given you the legal document. Everything is in order. So Bahadur was very, very, very nervous, very scared, anxiety, palpitations, not knowing what to do. So Bahadur did a little bit of research. Google's our friend. He ended up Googling information about what to do if your landlord wants to evict you for whatever reason. And Bahadur found so many different answers in so many different situations and so many different stories that he decided to use them. So Bahadur himself approached the LTB, the Landlord and Tenant Bureau, and said that this is what's happened. I understand everything is legal, but I don't know what to do. And that story, what happened, and that thing there, and that verdict from that first basement that Bahadur lived in, where Bahadur did want to leave, but he didn't have the finances and he didn't understand the system, went in his favor. And Bahadur didn't have to leave. And he stayed in that very basement for another 6 months. And from these 6 months, the last 3, he didn't pay rent. And then he realized that he could get away with it. So even though he left the basement, found a new place, and his heart was beating really fast, and he's like, I feel like I've done something wrong, and I don't know what it is. He did it a couple of more times until he himself said, now it's normal. And that is the show. Dear viewers, today we're going to be talking about the new normal. I gave you an extreme example, but in some circumstances, this isn't an extreme example. It's a very simple one. And for some people, it's a pretty big one. So stay tuned, because we're going to talk about the new normal right after this break. Think about it.
It's good to dream big, to own a house and a business. Get residential and business loans. Get insurance to protect your dreams. Get your children in university education without monetary worries. Invite your family from back home to share your success in Canada. Me and my team of professionals will help you under one roof to settle down in Canada.
Amber Financial and Allied Services. Call now 647-887-1696. Amber Financial and Allied Services. All services under one roof.
आपकी रिहाइश ऐसी हो जहां जिंदगी की सहूलत मयसर हो, जो आपको बुलंदियों पर ले जाए, तो मिलिए रियल एस्टेट मार्केट के एक्सपीरियंस्ड रियल एस्टेट प्रोफेशनल अमित ओबेरॉय से। GTA में रियल एस्टेट मार्केट के हर अंदाज से वाकिफ। आपको घर खरीदना हो, बेचना हो या करना हो मुनाफे का इन्वेस्टमेंट, मेरे तजुर्बे से आज ही फायदा उठाएं। आज ही कॉल करें अमित ओबेरॉय 647-291-8102। अमित ओबेरॉय, ब्यूटीफुल होम्स यू कैन अफोर्ड।
Zoc. Now it's fully renovated. Live catering, barbecue, tandoor, जलेबियाँ और फ्रेश नान। तकरीब आपके घर में हो या घर से बाहर, Zoc is providing full service now, and Zoc has opened a new banquet hall, garden event center. आपका Zoc देखकर लोग कहेंगे क्या Zoc है आपका? Call right now 905-625-7786. Zoc वालों के लिए।
डिक्सी इलेक्ट्रॉनिक्स और अप्लायंसेस पिछले 16 सालों से खरीदारों की खिदमत कर रहे हैं। हम लगातार 4 सालों से खरीदारों की पहली पसंद बने रहने का अवार्ड हासिल कर चुके हैं। हम किचनर्स, बॉश, वर्लपूल, LG, सैमसंग और जनरल इलेक्ट्रिक के ऑथराइज्ड डीलर हैं। 5 स्टार खिदमत का लुत्फ लें। हम आप सभी को टीवी सबसे ज्यादा रियायती दामों पर देने की गारंटी देते हैं। www.dixieelectronics.ca हमारी वेबसाइट पर जाएं या अभी कॉल करें 905-625-5900। सभी बहुत ही मुनासिब कीमत पर दस्तयाब हैं, जो आप बाआसानी से ले सकते हैं। At Dixie, we sell quality and deliver confidence.
अगर आप चाहते हैं खूबसूरत विजिटिंग कार्ड, साइन बोर्ड्स, बिल बोर्ड्स, तो कॉल कीजिए अमनदीप सिंह को 416-577-5128। 416 डिजिटल साइन।
कॉर्पोरेट इवेंट्स हो या शादी की तकरीब, बर्थडे एनिवर्सरीज हो या हो बेबी शावर, और अगर आप चाहते हैं स्टूडियो सेटअप, रेंटल बैकड्रॉप्स, हार गजरे या पार्टीज के लिए फ्रेश फ्लावर अरेंजमेंट, देन कॉल आफिया खान at 416-628-7849. Essence Event Decor, creative, elegant and unique.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome back to the show. Think about it. We left off talking about a story where we wanted to address the new normal. So, what is the new normal? What I'm going to share with you right now are just general thoughts that people have had for the past 50 years. 2021, track back to 50 years, 1971, I'm guessing. So, you track back and you have a look at these general inquiries and thoughts that people have in their mind about the new normal. Today we live in times of COVID. We have to wear masks when we go into public areas and public places and shops and malls and stores and cafes and restaurants. This is something that is becoming a new normal, especially for kids who were born 2017, 2018, even a little bit before and after, whose consciousness and cognitive awareness is just kicking in right now. For them, this is normal. For them, this is how life is supposed to be. When you go outside the house, you're supposed to wear a mask. So, as unfortunate as it sounds for people who are of a generation before and who've seen life that was a bit more open, this is what we're living in. But forget COVID for just 1 second. And forget the phrase that people say, new normal, that relates to today and the pandemic. Let's look at what the new normal really is, what it's doing, where it's heading, and what we need to, of course, think about, and what we need to act on as well. A long time ago, there was a person who was a doctor. He newly qualified, newly certified, newly got training, became a specialist doctor. And it was his second week at work when on his operating table, his patient died. That doctor went into a very big trauma, shock, unbelievable. Didn't know what to make of what had happened. Yes, he had read about death. He had heard about death. He had probably seen movies which had death in it, war movies. He had heard about all the different atrocities that had been happening in the past, about, from the Pleistocene epic, from, where dinosaurs were there and whatever the case was, from the time when crusades used to happen, from the time when, the Holocaust took place, from the time when the modern day Holocaust of what is happening in Palestine and the apartheid state that it is today. He had heard about all of it, but this was the first time he had experienced it on his table in front of him, with him as a witness. It was a very unsettling feeling. This same doctor, not 10 years later, not 20 years later, 1 year later, had normalized the concept of death taking place in an operating room. In fact, when before someone would tell him that my uncle passed away, my friend passed away, my parents passed away, he would have more empathy. He would have more emotion to, express grievance and say sorry for your loss. Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un. And have more of a silent, decorum, and be able to understand other people better, and would actually be part and share the pain of someone. 1 year later, it was so normal for him that when he had heard someone had passed away, he said, "How? Oh, that happened. Oh, they went to cardiac arrest. Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un." Death had become so normalized for this person that it meant nothing. I'm not saying that death is something that should shock the world, but I am saying that it is a purpose for community to get together and at least share each other's pain for whatever amount there is. Share each other's sadness so that people feel a little bit uplifted. Talk about good things, talk about the point of view of religion when it comes to death. Kullu nafsin zaiqatul maut. Every single soul, every single person will taste death. So talk about this life, talk about what it's supposed to be, and give someone some form of condolence that would help them and console them in some way or form, and be there for them. That is eliminated if the concept of death is normal. Similarly, this isn't just for a doctor. I can speak for myself. When I was a child and I would hear about someone dying, that was a very, very shocking thing to hear, and it would definitely frighten me. I'd be scared. I'd be thinking about what's going to happen next. What happens when you die? What happens when this happens? And you have so many questions and you're confused. And you're like, why did this person die? Why did he have to go right now? And if he was so young, oh my God. And you'd be thinking about all these things. Today, I can tell you in my life, I've had family members who've passed away. I've had very close friends who've passed away. I've had people who I've cared a lot about who've passed away. Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant them maghfirah and a high place in Jannah. Ameen ya Rabb. In fact, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant all those people who've passed away, all of our loved ones, all the people who died with iman within their hearts, whatever bit or excess of it was. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala forgive their shortcomings, accept our du'as for them, and highlight and make the wadan, make the weight of their good deeds so strong that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grants them a high place in Jannah. Ameen ya Rabb, ameen. So even for me, now that I've reached this position, death has become something that is normal. We hear about people dying in Palestine, being killed. That's not normal death. Somebody dies out of old age, out of a long illness. It's something that sometimes is expected to come, and you could probably console yourself better. But if somebody dies at a young age, or someone who seemed to be healthy, or someone who did not seem to have that much of an issue, obviously that's a shock. Even that is something that is becoming normalized. It's okay. Subhanallah. So when we hear stories of atrocities happening in Kashmir, with what the Indian forces are doing, what the Hindu forces are doing, what BJP is doing, we hear about what's happening in Palestine, about what the Zionist movement is doing and what the Zionist soldiers and armies and terrorist groups in, that somewhat of a place that people call Israel. We hear about these things, we don't really make much of a move. We have some times where our consciousness awakens, and for a day or two we're very strong and we're very vocal about it and we have a lot of passion about it, but then it dies down after some time. Subhanallah. We're at a stage in our lives right now where death is not a very big deal. It is normal. Similarly, we're at a place where atrocities are taking place, where a system abuses people, where governments abuse people, where you have terrorist organizations that abuse people. It has become normal. Now, I've mentioned very big things, but even institutional atrocities exist. For example, schools in Canada, schools around the world. In Canada, I can give you that example because I myself am a witness to what has happened. If you're a person who's an employee within the high school campus or high school section of a school, you're treated as a high school student as well. You're given a little bit more leniency, a little bit more leeway. However, if you're in the elementary section, you're treated as an elementary student, as a child. Everything is micromanaged, all eyes on you, and you're scrutinized. Every single move of yours is scrutinized, regardless of what your position might be. So when you take a look at atrocities taking place, these are systematic errors. They're not normal. They shouldn't be normal. They're not ethical in any way. Yet they exist in organizations. Yet people are abused. They take pay cuts. Their benefits are slashed. They're let go. They're put on layoffs. God knows what. The list goes on and on. The question here is that atrocities, how have they become normal? People are okay with atrocities. People say, oh, you have this experience in your company. The last company that I worked for did this. And you're like, wow, subhanallah. Everything is normal apparently. Atrocities have become normal. Back in the day when unions were stronger, back in the day in the 1970s, 1960s, where 401ks didn't exist in the US and the rest of the world didn't take from them. If you don't know what a 401k is, please Google what 401k is. 401k was something that was introduced by Ronald Reagan, who was one of the presidents of the United States, to suspend or to alternate the concept of a pension when people retired. And 401ks could be really bad for you, sometimes be really good for you, but I still myself haven't gotten my head around it. So basically, atrocities, that means taking away people's rights, has become normal. If you live in a third world country where the electricity goes off every now and then, the concept of load shedding, that happens, it's an atrocity, but people are okay with it. You go and you're told, and there's a schedule. Governments give out a schedule, or like you live in a neighborhood and a schedule comes out to you that today or every single day, every single Monday, Sunday, Tuesday, the electricity will be out from 2 p.m. to 3 p.m. And what ends up happening is that the electricity goes off at 2 and comes back at 4, and everybody's complaining, why did it go off for that extra hour? You said it was going to go off for 1 hour. For the love of God, it shouldn't have gone out to begin with. So people are fighting for their limitations. They're okay with the atrocities that are taking place. They're okay with having less, because somehow they were told about it before. So these are issues that exist in modern day society. Atrocities have become normal. Lying has become normal. I'm sure you don't need me to tell you this. Lying is not the best trait to have. In fact, it's a very bad trait to have. It's a sin to lie. Atrocities are sins as well, of course. But lying is the most basic thing that we're told when we're young not to do. You're not supposed to lie to people. Today, somebody calls your house, they call you on your phone, and you're sitting somewhere else, your child picks up the phone, and your child says, hi, hello, who is this? And they say, oh, okay. And they look at their dad and their mom, and it's like, this person's calling for you, and dad says, tell him I'm sleeping, tell him I'm busy. Oh, he's busy right now. The child has just learned how to lie. Lying has, and this is a very small example of something that actually magnifies and becomes something really big. So lying has in fact become normal in every aspect. Whether we want to save ourselves, whether we're selling a house or a car or doing something, or we just want to have a little bit of respect in the society that we live in or the 4 people that we sit down with. So we end up lying, boasting, or showing off or doing something, and we exaggerate. These things are, nevertheless, you touch your ear like this or you touch it from the back. It's lying. They've become so normal. that, subhanAllah, people indulge in them quite often. The problem here, with everything that I've told you right now, I've just given you 3 examples. People have written theses about this. People can write a book about this. People can write a series of books about this that might be never ending. If everything becomes normal, that means everything will become common. And if everything becomes common, that means all values will be lost. And we need to think about it. Because if you take a look at society and community, it's not the same as it was before. Because that's where it directly impacts. It impacts your sanity. It impacts the fact that you're more stressful. It impacts you in this life of debt and liabilities and the circle that we're in, which is already all man-made. Communities were stronger in the past. How so? I've had very close people who have passed away, as I mentioned before. I remember I went to the funeral prayer for a person who was very close to me, who passed away recently. And there were a lot of people who were there for that funeral prayer, for the janazah. There were many people who were there for the tadfeen, for the burial. People who were of all different ages. Most of them were of the previous generation, so they were a bit older. They were in their 60s, 70s, even 80s. And they were all talking about the past and how they used to meet at the local mosque and they were active there, how they used to meet at work and they made a very good community at work, how they used to live in the same neighborhood or a few streets across, how they used to meet at the local supermarket, what they used to do. But the fact that they used to converse with each other, the fact that they knew each other, and only that bit of ray and that connection caused them to come to that funeral prayer and have nothing but good things to say, have nothing but prayers and du'as for the person who passed away. And I started thinking to myself, how strong is community today? Because of everything that has become so normal, we've taken away from community. We're not close anymore. We don't even know our neighbors. We don't know their first names or their last names. And sometimes if we know their first names, that's all we know. We don't know their hobbies. We don't talk to them much. We just say, hey, neighbor, from far away. There's no actual exchange. There's no actual empathy. There's no actual emotion or humanity involved in it. And what ends up happening with that is you isolate yourself. And the unfortunate truth is, the new normal is isolation. Not just in the literal sense, but also in the metaphorical sense. Also in the practical sense. In fact, in every aspect. Friends, commercial. When I say commercial, I mean everything around us has become commercial. Our friends are not really our friends. People that we work with, who we think are our friends, or who we can tell people, oh, this is my colleague and they're my friend as well. How often do we meet them outside of work? How often do we make time to go to them and ask them if, when they're ill, go meet them, visit them, take some fruits or vegetables with us, take some soup around? We don't do this stuff anymore. We do not make time to see if people are well. Thus, they don't make time to see if we're well. You have MPs, member of parliaments. You have politicians and different people who are running for seats. They'll go to every single household when it's time to vote. And they'll ask people, what do you want in an MP? And they'll get voted, they'll get elected. But they'll never return back and ask, did you get what you wanted in an MP? And that is an issue. This is what isolation is. And what we need to do is we need to wake up and act on this. The first thing you could do is all the people that you know, that you have a relationship with, whether it be at a work capacity, whether it be families, whether it be neighbors, extend a hand of kindness and communication. When I say that, I mean there's a channel for communicating. You're making a dish at home like biryani. You're making nihari, you're making rice, you're making chicken chow mein, you're making chicken Manchurian. You're doing something, you're cooking at home. Save a little bit and give it to the neighbor. Walk up to their door, ring their doorbell, knock on their door. They open the door. Say hi to them. Ask them how they're doing. Give them something and say, we were thinking about you and we wanted you to taste and let us know how our cooking is. And hopefully we'll get a chance to taste your cooking sometime too. You've opened the door to actually have a connection with someone. That's how trust is born. That's how a relationship is born. Trust is not born in this materialistic society that we live in, trying to get up, trying to do something, trying to achieve something. Yet there's nothing worth achieving. You can buy all the houses in the world. None of them are going to be buried with you. You can buy all the cars in the world. None of them are going to be buried with you. You make enough connections and you make enough human friends and you make a community. You might not be buried with them, but they will definitely be there for you and they'll definitely pray for you. So I guess my 2 cents is work strong to build a community. Work strong to build relationships. Because if you don't, the new normal is going to ruin everything we have left. And we're going towards a time where everything is going to be isolated. We're going towards a time where we're already so selfish that then, even when we need help, nobody's going to be there to help us. I say this one more time. If everything becomes normal, then everything will become common. We won't care about it. It'll be a part of our daily practice. And if everything becomes common, if everything does become common, then all values, all relationships, community, what we're supposed to be doing on this world as human beings will be lost. Think about it. Inshallah, I hope you got something to take away from this show today. As always, if you hit the subscribe button, thank you. If you didn't, still, thank you for viewing. Take care. Until next time. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.